welcome to the show.
What's up, man? Thank you for having me.
So your character is a cop, but he's also pulling these heists on the side.
Word.
Complicated character.
True.
What did you think when you first read the script?
I was blown away by it. I mean, it's funny when you read a script, it's usually the main character and his co-star. Here, his co-star that gets all of the attention. They get the ability to live a full life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read this script, I was really entertained and impressed by the idea that every character you saw his story from the beginning to the end. You saw where he started, who he became, and then where he ended up. And you never really see that.
It's kind of rare in storytelling.
It's very hard to do, and it's very rare. And John Hillcoat, our director, really put us in a position to win, and that never happens when you make movies.
So this was very interesting to me. I read that for every role you play, you like to answer 68 questions.
Right.
Where does that approach come from, first of all?
Well, I've been acting and doing drama stuff since I was 9. And when I went to Juilliard, I came up with this questionnaire because I realized I was playing roles, and I didn't know anything about these people. Like, I didn't know what their favorite color was, where they, what's their favorite food, what was their first pet. So if I asked you the question, what's your favorite color?
Mm-hmm. I'll go with blue.
What's the name of your first pet?
I've never had a pet.
What street did you grow up on?
Baseline Road.
See what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So if you're creating a person, you need to know all those things. Otherwise, you're just being a really bad actor and learning lines.
So of those 68 questions, are there any in particular that you really key in on?
Well, it's interesting because after these 68 questions, I do a synopsis. And I'm a firm believer in life that, life is about perception. It's not so much about how you act, but how people perceive your actions. So I might think I'm a great guy. I might think I'm doing the most wonderful things to and for other people in the world, but other people might perceive me as an asshole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm a firm believer, and it's not so much what you say about yourself, but what other people say about you. So when I read the script, I highlight in a different color what other people say about my character.
That is a complicated process.
No, but it's actually very simple because you learn a lot about yourself. If you just set a camera up and have 10 of your closest friends answer 5 questions about you and just talk about you, you would really learn a lot about yourself.
If they're going to be honest, yeah.
Well, why would they lie? This is for me. Nobody will see this. Tell me what you think of me. And it's when you get into it in that depth, it gives you the freedom to, once you get on set, just really do what you want to do, because all of it's coming from a place of truth once you've created that character.
So what did you learn about Marcus then through that process, your character Marcus?
He loves his community. And one thing I wanted to put into this movie that I kind of came up with outside of the script and with all these questions was, Marcus is a person that grew up in a certain neighborhood. He wanted that neighborhood to stay safe, so he policed in the neighborhood that he lives in.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows the people in the neighborhood. The same neighborhood he went to high school with, when he went to a JUCO and transferred to a university in Atlanta, got his degree, started as a police and moved up to detective. He policed that same neighborhood. So there's a certain camaraderie that he has with the people in the neighborhood, in his community. And when you know a cop like that, it gives him a different tenor, a different bass line to his voice, a different vibrato when he's dealing with people. There's a certain familiarity that he has that cops who don't police the neighborhood that they know they don't have. So that was sort of what I was trying to bring to him, and that's why I do all that dumb work before.
So this guy's he's a real homer. He's a guy from the streets of Atlanta.
Right.
So he's familiar with the drug dealers, with the gang members on the streets. He knows them well. Why was that important to you to bring that kind of authenticity to this character?
Because it's a very thin line between a good cop and a dirty cop. And with Marcus in this movie, his thing was he didn't have a problem with drug dealers. He had a problem with the guy who goes to a party and sees a rival drug dealer and shoots 7 people instead of shooting that one guy. That guy's the problem. The neighborhood needs drug dealers. The neighborhood needs postmen. The neighborhood needs police. The neighborhood does not need a knucklehead.
So it helped you find that fine line.
Exactly. And, my thing is always try to act from a perspective that not of judgment. You know, when you read a script and you see a character that does A, B, C, and D, you don't want to read it and say, oh, well, he's an awful person. How could he do that? No, you try to read it from a place of understanding, because at some point in time, you have to take that, put it within yourself, and understand why you're doing it.
And there are actual Atlanta gang members in this film.
Yeah.
So what was that like on set?
It was a dumb idea. You know, we had a lot of the gang and SWAT actual officers from Atlanta in the movie. So one day we're on set, and it's this scene where we have these 3 heads on a car, and the gang sends us a message with this display of just slaughter. So we look around, there's a bunch of real tatted up like Latino cats on the street, just on the block, right? And the gang cop comes over and he goes, so are these guys in the movie? And director goes, yeah, we've just cast some local guys to fill in the space. He goes, well, you're about to have a problem because these dudes are from rival gangs. We're like, oh, so the gang cops kind of coordinate because nobody wanted to get kicked off the set. Like they all wanted to be in the movie. You know, this is their big break.
Now this is a serious problem.
Yeah, now it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
So the gang cops coordinate for some of the gang members to shoot at the end of the day, and the original gang members to shoot at the beginning of the day, so they're not on set at the same time. So that kind of got us out of our sticky situation. But it was real sticky for a second.
Had to create some scheduling.
I'm like, these ain't real bullets, homie. I can't be on this block with these dudes.
You played cops before, Anthony, and other authority figures. What interests you about these types of characters?
You know, the police department is really the whole idea of being a police is interesting to me because it's really a fraternity. You know, there's a code and a law that you go by once you put that shield over your heart. It's very interesting how with Marcus, one thing I noticed when I read the script and something that I came up with, no matter how dirty of a cop he was, the code of the shield was more important. And everything he did, he never did it towards other cops. Even in the movie, when he has a problem or an action that he has to execute towards another cop, the code of the shield comes before that. And that's his greatest dilemma in the movie. You know, it's funny because I have my issues, my ups and downs with authority and specifically police officers. But the reality of it is, at the end of the day, your job is to get a good story. At the end of the day, my job is to tell a good story. If you're a police officer, at the end of the day, your job is to make it home alive. And that's...
A lot of times people forget that that's your first
exactly.
priority.
That's your first priority. And when you think of it that way, you know, it's a humbling idea to look at a police officer and humbling what you expect of him or her also.
And all these complications, these moral complications you brought up, for example... Marcus as a police officer, understanding the streets and him having his own code, right? About how he can actually respect drug dealers as long as they're not doing X or Y.
Exactly.
So how did you get into the headspace of a police officer, besides doing this, your 68 questions and that sort of research?
You know, what's interesting, because I have a bunch of friends who are cops, good cops and bad cops, very bad. And what I've realized is it's not so much being a cop is not about looking good in a uniform or being an asshole to people you pull over. It's more so about the man or the woman that you put into that uniform. And with Marcus, what I wanted to do was make him into he's a mama's boy. You know, he grew up in a house with his mom in a neighborhood that he really appreciates, you know, and he's pulling these jobs to make enough money to where he can get his mama out of that neighborhood and give her something that she's always wanted and deserved, you know. And that's something that's very important to him. There was this little thing we put into the movie about his dog recently dying. And it's just every time you see him, he's just going further and further downhill because he misses dogs so much. You know, he got to pull his robbery, man. I got a cremation appointment for my dog
He's
today.
a real person.
You know, it's hard. You know, so little things like that. You know, it makes him more of a human being than an idea of what a cop should be.
How do you think your friends will perceive this film? Your friends that are cops, that are ex-military. What do you think they'll think about this film?
I think they'll like it. I think this is one of those movies like French Connection, like Heat, that you can watch and relate to because the characters are so real. You know, when you look at an ensemble piece, you can always, well, a movie like this, specifically this movie, you can always find yourself in one of the characters, you know. And my friends who are cops, they, you know, they're just funny. They always want me to play a cop and, you know, make them look like badasses and, you know, just really cool guys instead of being like the stereotypical donut-eating cop, you know. So it's funny, and I'm pretty sure they'll like the fact that I make them look pretty badass.
Are they cinephiles, or have they ever talked to you about their favorite portrayals of cops in film?
All the time, all the time. And the great thing about it is, like, a friend of mine used to be a NYPD, and he got injured and got basically an honorable discharge and he could no longer work the beat. So he lives in Atlanta now. So when we were shooting this movie, he would always come to set and tell me what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong, how I'm supposed to carry my gun, you know, when you walk. He was just that dude, like the most annoying friend in the world. And he watches all my movies and critiques them from the perspective of a police officer. And it's by far the most annoying. I mean, like, written like 2-page essays about what I did wrong when I was the Falcon. And now you don't fly like that. Like, dude, you've never flown in your life. Yeah, but I was a cop. And when we went through training, I'm like, oh, God.
So what are their favorite portrayals of police officers?
My boy who I was talking about, his favorite one, he likes the stereotypical cop stuff. So Beverly Hills Cop is like his favorite cop. When he was a cop, he wanted to be Axel Foley. Like, that was his goal. He's like, I'm going to make detective, and I'm going to change my name to Axel. That was his goal in life. But, yeah, Beverly Hills Cop is the one I get over and over from the brothers who are police officers.
So you finished filming this movie at an interesting time. It was the summer that Eric Gardner and Michael Brown were killed by police.
Right.
And you talked about having your own complicated relationship with the police. How did that inform your experience working on this movie?
Well, you know, it's a great question. The thing with me, and that's why I said, you know, thinking about the day-to-day life of a cop from the perspective of a cop really changes your idea of what a cop does every day. Police officers, the tag of a police officer is to protect and serve. That's literally what's on the car. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's when you impose authority on someone, you have to respect the authority that you have. And, you know, one rotten apple can destroy everything that a good cop has worked for his entire career. And, you know, when you look at everything that happened with, you know, Michael Brown and Gardner, it's scary because reaction begets reaction. You know, so if you say hello to me and I respond in a certain way, you're going to respond in a certain way.
Absolutely.
So our greatest demon right now in this society is overzealous escalation. You know, and with the internet and everything just comes so fast, you know, and instead of processing information, we react to information.
Well, you have an interesting perspective on all this because as an actor, you get to empathize with both sides.
Right, and that's what's so great. That's why I love what I do. I feel like, you know, my being a dad with 3 little brown sons, my perspective of what happened with those 2 young men being killed is completely different. And I think, you know, my situation coming from the man that I came from, who was my father, with the men I was surrounded with, my uncles and my brothers, It's just my view of it is very different than the everyday person.
And all this stuff must have been going through your mind as you're filming
Of course,
this. Yeah.
of course. And being a cop, you know, if you ever question yourself, they do these things called ride-alongs, where you sit in the car with the cop, he get a call, and you go with him. And I encourage people to get in touch with your local police force and do a ride-along, because it'll change your life on how you look at police officers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Another striking thing about 999 is it's set in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Majority of the cast are people of color. It's a very diverse film.
Very diverse film, yeah.
What did that mean to you to be a part of a project like that?
Well, it was very important. And talking to John Hillcoat, he really sees the world in a very colorful way. He's just one of the coolest, most interesting cats I've ever met in my life. And, you know, it's funny talking about racism and, you know, sexism and things like that. And working with somebody like him, it really opens your eyes to the person you should be or you could be, but every time you fall short and you're not. You know, and it's so cool working in a movie like this, because we have 2 black dudes, 2 white dudes, a Latino dude. You have Kate Blanchett. You have Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson's assistant detective is an Asian woman. You know, you just have a wide spectrum and variety of colors in this movie. And I think that's kind of how it should look, unless you're doing a very specific story set in Saskatchewan, Canada, on the outskirts of New Brunswick, Ottawa. You're going to find some brown people in there, you know? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's how the world looks.
It was very natural looking at this film. What do you think a film like that and a cast like that adds to the big conversation we're having right now about diversity in Hollywood and in film?
Well, I think it makes it I don't think it adds much to the conversation at all. I think the conversation, sadly enough, is not, I don't think it's being had from the right perspective. I think, you know, you talk about the Academy, the head of the Academy is a black woman. You know, Chris Rock is the blackest dude in the world, you know? So it's interesting when you look at it. I think the diversity does not fall on the shoulders of the people who judge the movies. The diversity falls on the shoulders of the people who makes the movies. And, you know, we used to be a very, very deeply rooted movie-going community. You know, if you look at Robert Townsend made his first movie on a credit card. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at the Wayans brothers and basically the entire, you know, thing that they've created with their entire family, you know, developing and creating content. I feel like we have to put ourselves in a position, if we want diversity, to take our content and create diversity. I think that's our job, you know.
And there's more opportunities to do that now.
And yeah, I mean, the internet, yeah, with cable TV. I mean, if you look at women, look, 15 years ago, women decided that they weren't going to sit around and wait for some 40-year-old dude to write a story for them. And now every TV show, the lead of it is a woman. Now every movie, the biggest stars in Hollywood are women right now. Tina Fey can't walk outside. I mean, it's, you know, Amy Poehler, you look at Oprah's the biggest star in the bajillion world. You know what I mean? So women actively stood up 10 years ago and decided they were going to take an active streak on how the way they were perceived in the world, good and bad. And I think for diversity, we have to do the exact same thing.
Well, thank you for your insights, Anthony, and congrats on the film.
Appreciate it.